Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's masterclass, Revitalizing Traditional Foods and the Importance of a Biodiverse Diet. My name is Flora Igo, and I lead the Youth Culture and Food Heritage Program of the World Food Forum Global Youth Action Initiative. And this session is part of the World Food Forum Young Chefs Program Masterclass series. Today we'll be recording the session and the breakout rooms, just to let you know. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce the young leaders that are facilitating today's session. So we have Valeria, Sarah, Isaiah, and Ranita. They're all members of the World Food Forum's Youth Policy Board, an independent body ensuring youth perspectives are integrated into global agri-food systems transformation. So I'll now give the floor to Valeria to introduce herself and to set the context for today's session.
Thank you, Flora. Yes, we're about to share also the slides. Well, hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining today. My name is Valeria. I am the lead of the nutrition team of the Youth Policy Board. I am a nutritionist from Peru, and well, I'm really excited to be here with you. Today, we'll be exploring the revitalization of traditional foods and why biodiversity in our diets matters so much, not just for our health, but for resilient food systems too. So could you please pass the next one? Yes. Yes, so as Flores mentioned, all the other Youth Policy Board members are joining us here today. In the next slide, you can see our photos. Yes, so it's Ranita, Sarah, and Asaya from the Youth Policy Board. And well, in the next slide, we're going to see the agenda as well. So the idea is that by the end of this session, you'll be able to understand why keeping a diverse diet is key for good nutrition and healthier communities. Also recognize some of the main challenges that make it hard to include traditional foods in diets, like availability, perception, knowledge gaps, among others. And also see how can we use traditional and local knowledge to create recipes that are both nutritious and support our ecosystems. So we're really looking forward into diving into these topics with you. And we'll also be sharing some applied case studies that we're excited to be sharing. So the next slide, please. So we're going to begin with today's masterclass talking about healthy diets. So what are healthy diets? Well, healthy diets are essential because they promote health, growth, and development. They also support active lifestyles and help prevent both nutrient deficiencies and chronic diseases. They also play an important role in overall well-being and in protecting our environment. However, there are many ways to define a healthy diet. And to help us create a common understanding, FAO and WHO identify 4 core principles that describe what a healthy diet should look like. So the 4 principles are adequacy, balance, moderation, and diversity. And I will briefly explain each one of these principles in the next slide, please. So the first principle is adequacy. An adequate diet provides all the essential nutrients that our bodies need to function properly, without exceeding any requirements. Our bodies cannot produce vitamins and minerals on their own, so we must obtain them from food. These nutrients support growth, brain development, immune function, and overall health. Adequacy reminds us that a healthy diet is not only about eating enough food, but also eating nutritious food. The second principle is balance. A balanced diet means consuming nutrients in the right portions, matching energy intake with the body needs. So healthy diets include a balance of the macronutrients, carbohydrates that provide energy, proteins that support growth and repair, and also fats that help the body function properly. When diets are not balanced, they can lead to undernutrition or overweight. So balance is about combining different food groups within the right portions. The third principle is moderation. Moderation means limiting foods and nutrients that can harm health when consuming excess. So for example, too much sugar, too much salt, or unhealthy fats can increase the risk of chronic diseases. Moderation also includes limiting highly processed foods, which often contain high levels of these 3, sugar, salt, and fats. So moderation does not mean avoiding foods completely, but consuming them in reasonable amounts. And the fourth principle is diversity. Dietary diversity means eating a wide variety of foods across and also within the food groups. This principle is particularly important because no single food contains all the nutrients we need. Different foods provide different nutrients, and eating a variety of foods helps ensure that nutrients needs are met. Also, dietary diversity is also strongly connected to traditional and local food systems. Many traditional diets are naturally diverse, including local crops, seasonal foods, and native species. However, modern diets only rely on a small number of staple crops, leading to a reduce in diversity in the diet. So this loss of diversity in the diets not only affects nutrition, but also culture and biodiversity as well. So to summarize, healthy diets are built on these four pillars, and in these four key principles, and show us that healthy eating is about overall dietary patterns, not a single food or nutrient. So while all of these four pillars are important, today we'll be focusing on the last one, that is dietary diversity. So for this, I'm going to pass to my colleague Asaya for him to start explaining more on this pillar.
Thank you very much, Valeria. Hi, everyone. I'm Isaiah. I'm part of the Youth Policy Board from the Philippines. I'm also a registered dietitian from the Philippines working on public health. And as Valeria has mentioned, like the benefit of how important a biodiverse diet, I just want to put an emphasis as well on some of the things that she has actually mentioned. For instance, actually having a biodiverse diet increases having more better nutrient intakes. When we say about better nutrient intakes, you're getting like the nutrients that you need to survive, and also particularly for children and young people, you're also getting the nutrients that you need for growth and development. It also minimizes your risk for non-communicable diseases, because having a biodiverse diet also ensures that you're getting essential nutrients such as, for instance, fiber, which is something that actually can help you with minimizing cardiovascular risks, such as heart diseases, hypertension, and then also it can help with moderating your sugars, and even moderating cholesterol levels. And also, since Valeria has mentioned earlier that there is a very important role that this is playing in terms of an ecological perspective, by having a biodiverse diet ensures that the environment to which the food we are actually growing is actually having enough time to actually get again the nutrients, or to replenish its nutrients before we actually get from it again. It also supports the sustainability within local food systems, and that's why we are also pushing for having biodiverse diets. And another thing, since it's also closely related with ecological balance, it obviously also promotes food and nutrition security, which is very important when we're talking about the concepts of diets. We're not just saying about food security, which is, just having food for everyone or ample food, but we're also talking about nutrition security, because the food that we're actually consuming is actually enough for you to nourish the body for the needs that you have for growth and development, and also for sustaining the needs that you need. Essentially, as Valeria has also mentioned earlier, a biodiverse diet also makes sure that also follows the principle that no one food actually has all the nutrients needed by the human body, and having the diverse diet can actually ensure that you're actually getting a lot of foods from various sources. And in relation to that, next slide please. um this is why we as well in the nutrition team groups, we also put an emphasis on the minimum dietary diversity indicator. This is very important as well, talking about not just on the nutrition aspect, but also when talking about sustainable agriculture, on a sustainable agricultural level, because when we talk about the minimum dietary diversity, we're talking about zero hunger. Right now, a lot of countries, speaking from the Philippine experience, for instance, we also have micronutrient deficiencies. And this is very important when we're talking about it in that context, because the consumption of at least 5 out of the 10 food groups you can see on your screen can actually help minimize micronutrient deficiencies, or which is what we call also as hidden hunger. In addition to that, it also helps in meeting the Sustainable Development Goal number 2, which is addressing zero hunger. So some of the food groups that you can see here includes grains, white roots and tubers and plantains, pulses, nuts and seeds, dairies, meat, poultry and fish, eggs, dark green leafy vegetables, other vitamin A rich fruits and vegetables, other vegetables and other fruits. Again, when we're talking about it in the context of dietary diversity, we're introducing a lot of foods because again, it follows again the principle that no one food has all of the nutrients that we will need. And thus having a diverse diet can not only helps sustain the food system, it also actually helps in replenishing the body and getting all of the nutrients that are needed. Thank you very much. I'd like to pass it on back to Valeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Saya, for sharing why dietary diversity and traditional foods are important. So now what we want to do is we want you to think about the practical challenges that prevent these foods for being included more consistently in diets. So first, I want you to take a moment to reflect. If we know that traditional and local foods are nutritious and culturally meaningful, why aren't they consumed more widely? What are the barriers in your communities, in your context, in your countries for this? And we can reflect on this main question. What are the main challenges in promoting the consumption of traditional foods? For this, to capture your ideas, we will sharing a Mentimeter link. Here it's the QR code, or you can also join by at menti.com or using this code. So we'll give a couple of minutes or seconds for you to join the Mentimeter. And please type as many challenges as you can think for this. Every idea is valuable. So now I'm going to share my screen to show the results. So here we are putting some challenges. We see lack of knowledge, kind of repeats itself, availability, multinational power, lack of awareness, availability, especially in urban areas, price, unfamiliarity, industrialization, presentation of traditional foods, making it hip and trendy, lack of awareness, misinformation. So many of these challenges kind of repeat. Also difficult to get the products. Yes, as we can see, I think the ones that mainly repeat themselves are availability, also the lack of awareness, the lack of knowledge, and other different challenges that present in this context. So now what we're going to do, thank you for sharing all the challenges you think are for promoting traditional foods. So if we could go back to the PowerPoint presentation, please, where we wanted to frame these challenges on the 4 pillars of the food security. So here are the 4 pillars for the ones that are not familiarized with food security. Food security means that all people at all times have access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets the dietary needs and preference for an active and healthy life. So the 4 pillars are availability, access, utilization, stability. And for each one of these pillars, we can ask these key questions that kind of also involve the answers you have given in the Mentimeter. So availability. Are traditional foods grown or produced in sufficient quantities? For access, can communities and consumers access them physically and economically? The third, utilization. Do people know how to prepare and consume them for optimal nutrition? And finally, stability. Are these foods consistently available year-round and resilient to shocks? So in the next slide, we can see maybe repeated some of the challenges you have already mentioned, but we thought kind of framing it in these food security pillars will help it understand and kind of put a frame into all these different challenges. For example, for availability, the declining cultivation of native species due to the focus also on a few staple crops, also limited production, knowledge or access to seeds, reducing the availability to grow traditional crops. These challenges limit the presence of traditional foods in both households and also in markets. The second one is access. So here it's market gaps, low commercialization. Traditional foods are often not sold widely. And also high cost, that's also something it was mentioned in the Mentimeter, or limited distribution, making it difficult for some communities to obtain these foods. So addressing access requires ensuring foods are physically available and also affordable. The third one is utilization, so limited of knowledge. I think that was the challenge that was most repeated on the Mentimeter. So limited knowledge also on how to prepare and cook these traditional foods, and also the lack of information and awareness of their nutritional value. Utilization challenges highlight the importance of education, culinary skills, and also recipe innovation to make traditional foods more appealing and practical. And finally, we have stability, which includes the seasonal availability. Some foods are only available during certain times of the year, and also vulnerability to climate change and environmental shocks, such as drought, floods, or pests. Improving stability requires strategies like seed preservation, sustainable farming practices, and climate resilient productions as well. So in summary, by using these 4 pillars, today we're with the rule of 4s, there's also 4 pillars, the availability, access, utilization, and stability, we can understand more clearly why traditional foods are underrepresented in our diets. This framework also helps us think about where interventions are needed and whether it's supporting cultivation, improving markets, teaching different preparation skills, or building resilience. So we will explore concrete examples and strategies to address these challenges and how to implement it in healthy, diverse diets. So for that, I'm going to give the pass to my colleague Ranita, so we can explore more that part.
Thanks so much, Valeria, for sharing on the challenges. And now I'll be sharing more on how menu design, sourcing, and storytelling can actually bring so much value to your restaurant, as well as create more value to biodiversity. So as you all know, today's food system is largely industrialized, correct? Okay, so I'll explain a little bit more about it. It's very, very much designed, like, for example, ultra-processed food and many other types of processed food are designed for efficacy, efficiency, scale, and of course, output. We see it in mainly due to climate crises. We see it in biodiversity crises, where only a handful of crops or plant species are now used in global diets. Ages ago, when ancient time, we used to have about 6,000 to 7,000 different plant species used in our food. But now just a fraction. We can count like rice, maize, wheat. It's so just a handful. And we see it actually in the health of our populations, and many people around the world's health are also declining. So the question is not whether the food system influences biodiversity, but the question we have to ask ourselves, who has the power to shift them? All of us do, including chefs, and you all make so much of bring so much of power in the line of food and in the line of consumers. And menus are not just list of dishes, as you all know. They are decision-making tools. They influence what diners choose and what suppliers grows, and of course, what farmers are incentivized to plant. If the farmers don't get revenue out of that certain particular food, they won't be incentivized to plant it, right? So you all play a very important role. Firstly, chefs can build consumer interest in more diverse ingredients. When a menu highlights indigenous grains, underutilized vegetables, heritage values, varieties, then it brings so much of curiosity and knowledge from consumers, correct? Secondly, chefs can boost creativity through diversity. And how is that? And when designing menus consciously, we can ask 3 simple questions. Y'all can ask yourself, is this ingredient responsible? Is this having any environmental impact? And what is the nutritional value? taste is important, but also nutritional value is important, because even small decisions can affect the health of population, especially when you look at how much oil, sugar, salt is included in the dishes. So if you can even see from this slide, 1 small teaspoon of oil is about 45 calories, and 1 teaspoon of sugar is about 20 calories. In Asia, the limit is to have about 7 teaspoons a day. And salt, 1 teaspoon of salt is WHO's recommendation worldwide for an individual to help, which is actually 2000 milligrams of sodium. So it's too much of technical, but I thought these three would be important to also put in to know a little bit more on how it affects health of populations. Ultimately, the kitchen, the chefs, the people in the kitchen need to stay curious about where ingredients come from, what traditional knowledge, curious about new crops, new farmers, new ways of cooking, because the future of our system really just depends on chefs, and also depends on that small curiosity that goes a long way. Now I'll pass the floor over to Flora. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Renita. So now we'll move on to our applied case studies part of the masterclass. So I would like to first invite Valeria to take us through some of this practical work. And Valeria's work is going to focus on revitalizing traditional tubers in Peru. Valeria, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Flora. Thank you all. I'm very excited about sharing this experience with you. So I'm going to focus on my work. I've been working and collaborating for over 4 years with Shawi indigenous people, especially in activities such as research, community engagement strategies, and also leadership workshops. So today I'm going to talk about different community-led initiatives that aim to preserve their traditional foods and also strengthen their local food systems. So first, a little bit about the Shawis. They are an indigenous communities in Peru. They are located in the north part of the country. Here, food and cultural traditions are deeply intertwined for them. And what people eat is not just about nutrition, but also about identity, family, and intergenerational knowledge as well. Within the community, there are also different ways in which, for example, how men and women eat the foods, what foods are prioritized, which makes understanding these practices essential when considering nutrition, culture, preservation, and health as well. So next slide, please. Today, I'm going to want to share about 2 main initiatives that are called Biokusharu and Mama Imin. So the first one, Biokusharu, was a project focused on understanding how climate change was affecting Amazonian indigenous communities, especially in the part of health in issues like anemia. The name Biokusharu was created by the own community. This was a co-collaboration process. Biokusharu is the mixture of the word bio, representing biodiversity, and kusharu, that means food in Shawi or Kampanan language. Which perfectly reflected this project purpose, looking at food and biodiversity together. However, during this process, we collaborated with different youth from Shawi communities, and they, in this process of learning what the community ate, they noticed something important, that some traditional tubers and food portions were being consumed only by the older generations, by the elderly in the communities. So while younger generations were not or didn't knew about these different tubers. And they realized that this meant that these foods and tubers were at risk of being lost. So seeing this gap, youth took the initiative of creating Mama Imin, which can be translated roughly as Mother's Farm. That was a youth-led project that aimed to revive these traditional crops and involve the whole community, especially women and youth. So next one, please. Here you can see the different the Mama Imin farms. We cultivated about 14 different tuber species, and they use different ancestral agricultural practices that have been passed down through different generations. So this project for them wasn't just about growing food, but it was about reviving their traditional knowledge and making sure these crops remained part of their community and daily life. Here at the picture on the right, you can see the different species of tubers that we cultivated along with some fruits as well. But the project didn't stop here. Youth wanted to find ways to expand the reach of these products. So we collaborated with Matter in the next slide. Matter, it's a gastronomic research center, which works on biodiversity, climate change, and culinary innovation. This is a research center that is in Lima, that is the capital city of Peru. This center, Matter, works closely with two internationally recognized restaurants that are called Central and Colle. Both were awarded in the 50 best restaurants list. Central achieving the best restaurant in 2023. So thanks to this collaboration, we were able to create different outputs. So we met with Matter. We also met with the people in the restaurant, with the chefs. They were really interested on learning more about their traditional tubers. So they went to the field. We went to the harvest of these tubers, and different outcomes from this collaboration come across. So in the next slide, we're going to see one of the outputs was creating this calendar that was designed by youth in the community. So Junior is one of the youth in the community, which we work very closely with. And you can see here his work of art. This involved months of drafting, discussion with elders in their community, and integrating intergenerational knowledge. You can find more about this work on Instagram of Biokusharu, and also in Matter's account, where the community creations and projects were shared. In the next page, we also created a catalog. So in these discussions with Matter, we realized that, well, they were purchasing some of the tubers for the restaurant innovations. Here you can see in the bottom right some of the different things they did with the tubers, including not only dishes but also even drinks as well. So they thought it was really interesting, all the different culinary techniques and different preparations and recipes they created from these tubers, and they were willing to help us expand these across different restaurants in the country. So they helped us develop what we call the Shawi Food Catalog. This catalog included the 14 different cultivated roots, showcasing not only their nutritional value, but also their cultural significance. For example, this catalog includes how the roots are used in traditional medicine, their different culinary uses, not only for the tuber themselves, but also for parts of the peels and other parts of the plant in the farm to help reduce waste, and also their location, where this can be found, and other practical details. This project was a true co-creation between the Gastronomic Center researchers and community members, combining both traditional knowledge with scientific research. It strengthened local food systems and also gave visibility to traditional crops and supported the community in valuing their heritage. So in the next slide, we can also see some of the benefits. In this photo, we were doing a culinary exchange. So the women in the community were showing us the different culinary techniques they use to cook these tubers. And also the people from the restaurants, the chefs, went to the community to share some of the things they did with the tubers, because we shipped a small amount of tubers to them, and they created different things such as syrups, also powders, flours, and other more gastronomic and food technology as well. So this workshop was really nice, and in general, the whole collaboration supported the community farms. It strengthens local food systems and also created visibility for traditional crops. It also promotes sustainable consumption, emphasizing biodiverse, nutrient-rich foods rooted in culture. It elevates traditional knowledge and culinary heritage, helping prevent biodiversity loss and fostering diets that benefit both people and the planet. And finally, it also demonstrates effective intersectional collaboration between indigenous youth, research institutions, private sector, and academia. Well, the gastronomic sector as well, of course. And in the next slide, we can see the importance of this partnership with the gastronomic institutions. Next slide, please. Here we can see some of the dishes that were created using these traditional tubers. So this collaboration also opened economic and cultural opportunities for the community. Working with culinary centers help the youth scale their impact of their work by connecting expertise, networks, and resources from multiple sectors, while also ensuring that all interventions were culturally appropriate and community-led. Well, thank you so much for this space to present this project and letting me share this experience with you. I hope it gives you a little glimpse into the richness of Shawi food culture, also the creativity and leadership of youth, and the importance of protecting traditional foods for both people and ecosystems. Thank you so much, or also Jusparin, that it's thank you in Shawi language.
Thank you, Valeria. So next we'll hand over to Yuyi. Yuyi C is an intern at the World Food Forum Youth Initiative's Culture and Food Heritage Programme and also a PhD candidate at the University of Oxford. Her research is exploring how sustainable agri-food systems transitions through indigenous knowledge systems, intercultural collaboration and community-led action in the Amazon basin. Yuyi, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Flores. Hi, everyone. My name is Yuyi. I recently joined the cultural team and I work on food heritage initiatives. I'm also a PhD candidate at the University of Oxford. It's a great pleasure to be here today to share part of my PhD research. It is a case study from the Colombia Amazon, exploring how a group of Ticuna indigenous women are reviving their ancestral food recipes. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, I would like to start with a quote from the Benilda. Benilda is the Colombia Cooking Award winner and one of the leaders of the Ticuna cooking group. She once said to me, "Our children are eating trash." In the Amazon, dietary change is closely linked to the ecological and economic challenges. Forests are being cleared and fish stock are declining. Meanwhile, processed and market foods are increasingly replacing traditional ingredients. This leads to less fruit, vegetables, fresh fish, but more processed food, especially frozen chicken, increasing concerns about nutrition and health. Against this backdrop, the needs for transformation arise. The transition towards a better food future is about embracing diversity and reconnecting humanity, history, nature, and society. Next slide, please. There already exist in the Amazon region projects that promote a paradigm shift. Sabarasi Saboras Ticuna is one of the cases. It emerged in Semadin Damakayagu, a Ticuna indigenous communities of over 700 inhabitants and 189 households. We can see from the left maps, it is located near the triple borders of Colombia, Peru, and Brazil. The cooking project is founded in 2015 by Ticuna women themselves to revive our ancestral food recipes. Today, 27 active members from the elder grandmother to the young girls participated in this intergenerational initiative. Although it is women-led, this cooking group is inclusive and the project are open to everyone inside the community. Next slide, please. I spent almost half a year inside these Ticuna communities in 2024. I conducted the participate observation, informal conversations, interviews, go-along, focus group, and cooking meetings. This method can also be adapted to your own research and projects, and please feel free to reach out to me by email if you would like to know more details about those methods. Next slide, please. Those are the recipes from the Sabarasi Saboras Ticuna. They're super delicious. They are mainly made with diverse local ingredients, such as local fish, yuca, plantain, wild seeds, seasonal fruits, and forest animals. Next one, please. Through their collective work, the women collaborate with researchers such as me and the local NGOs such as Fukai. Fukai is a Colombia organization that supports indigenous rights and developing training programs in traditional gastronomy. Through this collaboration, the seasonal harvest and food calendars were developed. In doing so, they made visible the rich diversity of the Ticuna food varieties throughout the year. Next slide, please. The women are not only reviving recipes, but also reshaping their agro-food systems through a wide range of activities. Beyond cooking, their transition includes sustainable farming, storytelling, and crafts essential for daily life. What is innovative is how they rework this foundation to meet the contemporary challenges. They experiment with the communal food processing, engaging in ecotourism, open small family-run restaurants, and envision a community cooking maloka. Maloka is a traditional Ticuna large round house reimagined as collective restaurants and cultural space. Next slide, please. The work of the Ticuna women reminds us that strong food systems grow from the local roots, but they travel through inspiration, storytelling, and networks. So I would like to ask all of you talent chefs, what are the local ecosystems behind your own kitchen? What ingredients connect your menus to the specific landscapes and communities? Thanks for your listening and welcome to all the questions and suggestions.
Thank you so much, Yi. So now we have a bit of time for some questions. So please feel free to use the chat or raise your hand if you would have any questions for us. I'll just give another moment in case anybody has some thoughts to share, even or questions for any of our panelists. Please feel free. Okay, I don't see any. I might ask, oh, Sean, you have a question, I see. Please feel free, Sean, to go ahead.
I didn't want to just jump in, but I'm looking for the hand to raise the hand. Thank you for that. Valeria, muchas gracias. Very, very, very impressive. And everyone who concerned, Yi also. My question is kind of, how many of these projects exist? Does anyone have an idea of how many these projects exist around the world? Of these, understanding cultural heritage, food, so we can make it more hip and trendy, is what I kind of documented. And I think it's an important part of who we are, what we eat, etc., etc. We're all singing off the same hymn sheet, I'm sure, but in terms of the projects, how many are there, or is there no record of that?
I'm going to take this one. Thank you. I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know exactly how many they are. I think not many, but because I think it's difficult to start building up this relationship. So it's a whole process. It's something we've been building the connection with the youth, with the community, and start forming this trust for them. Also, not we didn't just go one day gave us all their information, but we will build in trust, and they were also understanding. We did a lot of workshops and also meetings for them to understand the importance, and they kind of wanted also to share their knowledge. So it would be amazing that there will more projects to scale up this, but it's something that many people don't take into consideration. It's that it's a long process, so it takes time, it takes patience. it would be great that more of this exists, and also that there were more associations and or more centers that are willing to work, because many of the things that we did, for example, in what things I shared, many were with the support of these institutions. So that's why multisectoral and intersectional collaborations are really important when developing this type of projects. But I'm going to look it up if there's any numbers. I don't know, Yuyi, if you have any idea on that part.
I'm not sure about what's exactly the numbers, but I think it's very meaningful if we try to map in those food heritages. And also in the, I know just in the Amazon area, there already exist many already.
Thank you both. Sean, I hope that helps with your question. I see another couple of questions in the chat box. So I see Derek has asked, what has been the biggest barrier you've personally faced doing this work? Derek, do you have anyone in particular you'd like to direct this question to on the panel?
Yeah, it was the two ladies that presented on the work, the potatoes in Peru and the other one in Colombia.
Okay, so another one for Yuyi and Valeria.
Okay, you go first, please.
Okay, I can go first. For me, the biggest challenges is the cultural difference. Because I'm from China and I went to the Ticuna community, they have a really different culture with me. For example, sometimes if we organize some event, they always come late, sometimes even 1 hour late. For outside, people might think this disorganizations or inefficiency, but for them, they're not the people we look at, watch the films. They think this is just a result, natural result that interact with the environment. So I think if when we're doing this kind of project, we really should to listen to their culture, their lifestyles, and try to understand it and conduct those projects inside their cultural framework.
Thank you. From my side, I think it was a whole learning process, because we faced a lot of different barriers we weren't expecting, but for in our case, that it was this collaboration with the gastronomic center. For example, we had to send the different tubers and foods to the capital city and do it, like doing all of this logistical logistic chain. It was kind of a barrier, because there is not so many training for indigenous communities on how to build up these different cooperatives or different how to introduce these foods to the market. There are different barriers. The prices, also not necessarily knowing distributors, vendors. So that introduction into the market, it's been a whole learning process. I could do another talk only about that part, I think. But from the community side, they were really eager, they were really enthusiastic. And I think one of the things that really made this possible was, as I mentioned before, the collaboration, having different stakeholders, different institutions that supported this process and did it in a very culturally appropriate way. So because many times what in the case of indigenous communities, what happens is that they face discrimination, and usually people take advantage of them not knowing some processes and charge them more. So there are still a lot of barriers that are not to navigate this. But as I mentioned before, it's a long process and we have to have many patience on this. But thank you for the question.
Thank you for the questions. And I see that there's a couple more. I'm going to move on to the next part, but we will have our emails at the end of this masterclass, so you'll be able to follow up with more questions then. So to go into the next part of today's masterclass, I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who will introduce the breakout rooms. Sarah, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Flora, and hello, everyone. We thought to make it a bit more interactive and to also hear your voices and see a bit how to apply the things that we just learned. We thought of making a small breakout room with some discussions. And we thought of three questions. The first one would be to identify one ingredient from your region, which could be a local, traditional, or underutilized ingredient. Then to brainstorm one practical way to include it in a recipe or menu. And then optionally, you could think of what is the potential impact, because we heard so much about the nutritional impacts, about the cultural impacts, and also about local producers that are really important in that process. So yeah, the idea is now that we go into 4 breakout rooms.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for the discussion in the breakout rooms. Now we would like for it, I don't know if when you were in your breakout room, you designated one person to share what ingredient did you choose to work on, and maybe share a little bit more about the recipe and also about the potential impact if you got to discuss that part. So from Sarah, from your group, is anyone who wants to discuss?
Yeah, that was Leonardo. I'm going to share my screen so you can
Perfect.
see.
Okay, here I am.
You can see my screen, right?
Yeah. So
Wonderful.
we use sorghum, which is not basically a crop that is really from our place, but it's really it can be grown in a lot of places. It's really easy to grow, and we choose it for its versatility because, for example, here we can you move a little bit the slide from. Yes, perfect. We came up with a starter, a dessert, and a drink. A starter in order to use sorghum as flour, to cut it with I don't know, maybe normal flour, to reduce the intake of wheat, and also to augment the intake of fibers also, and to accompany it with hummus made also with sorghum that kind of give it a structure, and smoked eggplant, and more condiments like the basic stuff you use for hummus in our place here and in Europe, for example. As a dessert, we decided to use the sorghum as a porridge, maybe cutting it with sorghum milk or another kind of milk, always that comes from vegetables like I don't know, maybe rice milk or almond milk, and using as a sweetener, using molasses that came from also the porridge. The sorghum. Maybe using koji to take out with its enzymes these natural sweeteners. Also, in following this kind of brainstorm, we decided to pair it with a drink that is sorghum beer, because malting the sorghum with Aspergillus oryzae, you can take out the sugars, and you can ferment it with like a beer. So that's why we chose sorghum. It is really versatile.
That's amazing. Thank you, Leonardo, for sharing with us. I find it amazing how you can also pass it into a drink. That's really nice. Very, very flexible, as you said. So thank you. Now we're going to pass with Ranita from your group. Who is someone presenting?
Hi.
Thanks so much.
Sorry.
Oh,
Ranita, go ahead.
Right. Okay, my group, yeah. So I am actually leading the Africa region. Isaiah is leading the Asian, the Pacific. So I think Isaiah is supposed to be assigned to present first. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, sorry, Asaya, go ahead, please.
Yes. Yeah. Um, from our group, we actually were able because we also had someone from Switzerland in the group, so we were actually able to integrate as well two ingredients. But we had someone from India. So from our group, we actually were able to stumble about bel nole. So it's a cheese. It's a very specific cheese similar to like Parmesan. That's actually used it's cow milk based with black pepper. If you can see like um uh it's actually filled with like black pepper around it. And then we also were thinking of introducing like another ingredient here, and then we were able to stumble upon finger millet, which is actually a native crop to the Himalayas. And it's actually very versatile because it's used in a lot of Indian cuisines, because we have shawarma, who's actually from our team, um who actually shared about Shweta, sorry, shared about this. And then in terms of the recipe, because we actually lacked time because we were discussing a lot about our group, we were initially looking about having it mixed into a gnocchi style or like a dumpling type dish, because we see that the finger millet actually as shared by Shweta earlier can actually be milled into the flour. And then also we see that since this can be made into a flour, we can also make it into a gnocchi style, given that we have the cheese from the bell nole. And then also we can make a dumpling with and then cook it with vegetables that are native from our respective countries. Yeah, that's all from our group. Thank you.
Thank you, Asaya. That's amazing. Sounds really good. Now we're going to pass to my group. So I will give the floor to Michaela to present, please.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Ooh, okay. So our group we spoke about two things. So it was tilapia fish and sea moss. And we went ahead to try to create recipes including both. The more practical thing, or the more accepted thing, would have been the tilapia fish, but also sea moss has its nutritional value as well. So we were thinking of ways to incorporate both into it. So we went ahead with the recipes from we selected the fish because the Caribbean diet is mostly carbs. So we're thinking of different ways to incorporate other part of the food groups into our diet. And chicken is a wide protein that our go-to protein. So seafood with its diversity and accessibility in the Caribbean, as well as sea moss as well. So our recipe that we came up with was a curry-based recipe. It is the curry and coconut milk, and then using the sea moss as a thickening agent, or for the sauce itself, was one way. And then we also talked about a different recipe, which would be stuffed fish. So having the fish with or traditional herbs and spices, as well as like potatoes or carrots on the inside. Again, adding that sea moss in as a thickening agent. The example that I pulled from is basically switching out certain things that we have in a traditional Jamaican recipe to something that is more nutritional based and that would have more impact. So as we go down, we were speaking more on the impact that it would have. And the last thing we spoke about in that group is that it would create a relationship between us, the people, and the vendors themselves. The example that I used was that my grandmother's community has a local fisherman who goes out, and he would be the person who's supplied to that specific community. So he would go out for a day or two, for 2 or 3 days, and then he will come back, and his customers are that specific community. So the one impact that we got to would have been that it has that farm to table relationship with vendors and customers, and that one person is where you would have been able to get your fish and your sea moss from, knowing directly where it's coming from. We didn't get to that part, but the nutritional value would also help. In the Caribbean, we have non-communicable diseases, which is hugely linked to carbs, as was mentioned in our breakout study, in our breakout group. And so this recipe and these ingredients that we brought forward would have been able to add higher nutritional value from the sea moss and the fish, and also thinking about the ecosystem and not only having one type of fish, and considering where in the eco chain we're taking that fish from, as or even the sea moss, as to not affect the diversity and the functionality of the ocean, the seas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, it was really interesting talking about this and how it could be. We chose two ingredients and it could make it one recipe. So it was really
Both.
interesting about that. And the last one, so Africa group, Ranita. Go ahead.
Thanks, Valeria. Yeah, I'll pass it over to Okiola about Fonio.
Hello, everyone. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Good. So in my group, we discussed ingredients like the grains, the fonio from West Africa, and millet from Zambia, then shea fruit pulp, which the shea butter is made from, and also pear with thorns from Palestine, which is also called the Gondelia toneforti. So we spent a lot of time sharing these different ingredients from the different places that we're from. We didn't really get to do most of the things, but we are going to focus on fonio from West Africa. Fonio is labor intensive, but it is also high in fiber, and it's also gaining some kind of traction these days because more Nigerian chefs more African chefs are talking about it because it's an underutilized ingredient in Africa. So one of the things that we can also work on is the packaging. The way it is packaged can be worked on so that more people can actually get to use it more. Chefs can actually use it more in their recipes, in their menus that they use in their restaurants, and also food content creators can use it more when the packaging is better. And also fonio can, where I'm from, fonio is used to make a kind of porridge. It's very peculiar to the northern part of the country. It's used to make a porridge called guate. So this one, they use hibiscus flowers, they use beef bones, beef broth to make this, and it is very high in iron and also calcium. And also the kind of vegetables that are used in it, very rich in vitamins. So we didn't really talk about the impact on nutrition and culture, but because of how labor intensive it is, most people don't get to really use it. Especially young people, they don't get to get involved in the production, especially. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you all for participating on this exercise of the working groups. I was impressed on how quickly you guys came up with these innovative recipes and how quickly you think of the ingredients. So it was amazing hearing from you. And now I'll pass it to Flora to do the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Valeria, and thank you everyone so much for sharing your insights. And I'm also really impressed, and it was great to hear about all these different ingredients like sorghum, sea moss, finger millet. many different perspectives shared. So really appreciate it. And I'd encourage you, the young chefs from the Young Chefs program and mentors from the chefs program, to continue these conversations on the platforms you have, to connect with each other and to keep it going. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. So I'd just like to thank our speakers, the Youth Policy Boards, Valeria, Isaiah, Ranita, and Sarah. Thank you so much for joining. It was really good to have your perspectives, and also to you, Yi. And thank you to everyone else who joined and engaged as well. So hopefully this session today helped demonstrate how biodiversity and nutrition are deeply connected, and importantly, the role of chefs, that's a unique role, and the power of chefs to make these this link very visible. So we look forward to having you in future sessions. We're going to leave the culture program email in the chat box so that you can reach out to us for any further questions. That's all for today. Thanks so much for joining.